Right, afternoon everybody. Sorry we're a bit late, technical problems. Right, we'll get started. Membership of the committee. I think everybody's here who's supposed to be. Yeah. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. Can we pass them as a true record? Thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest and lobbying. I'll start with Councillor Bellamy.
None, Chair.
Can't hear me?
Yeah, your mic's on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Try again.
Can you hear me now?
It's going out to YouTube, so on YouTube.
Is it a setting on here?
It might be a setting on their computer.
There's also sound you can't hear.
You still won't get it. Try that.
Just try now.
Right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Go back to the beginning of item 3, declarations of interest. I'll start off with Donna again.
None, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
None, Chair.
Councillor Reeves.
None.
Councillor Pinnett.
I have another interest in item 8 on the grounds that my wife's a member of the University Council.
Right. Councillor Pattison.
None, Chair.
Councillor Sokol.
None, Chair.
And myself, none. This is a interesting one. Admission of the public. It's in public when cameras are running and audio. Item 5. Any public questions?
No questions, Chair.
Item 6. Any deputations or petitions?
No, Chair.
Right. Item 7. Planning application. Usually at this time we'd say where we've been on his bus, on his little trip around Kirklees doing site visits, but as we're not doing them at the moment, nothing to report. Item 8, page 9, and this is the Leeds Road Southgate site.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. My name is Kate Mansell, one of the group leaders within Development Management and the case officer for this application. Before I start, I would just draw your attention to the committee update, which contains a floor space correction and also the full comments of the Council's Biodiversity Officer. In light of the Biodiversity Officer's response, the heads of terms have been modified to secure net gain measures by condition rather than a legal agreement, as set out in the update. So this is item 8 on the agenda, an outline application for the construction of a health and innovation campus on the Southgate car park site in Huddersfield Town Centre. The application is submitted by the University of Huddersfield. It is an outline application with all matters reserved. So the proposal to consider before you today is the principle of a new campus being constructed on the Southgate car park site to enable the university to deliver higher education degrees in the field of health and well-being. This slide shows the red line boundary and the extent of the application site. Southgate and Crown House lie to the west, Leeds Road to the north and Old Leeds Road to the south and east. This is an aerial view of the site from 2018. As many of you will know, the site was previously occupied by 2 high-rise housing blocks, a large sports centre, a multi-storey car park and various other buildings. These were cleared in 2016 and the site regraded. Part of the site is currently used by the council as a car park following a temporary 3-year permission granted in September 2020. Within the local plan, the site is allocated for mixed use, shown in red on this slide. It also falls within the boundary of the town centre, which is the blue line, and opposite the Huddersfield Town Centre Conservation Area, which is a hatch blue area. The blue dots running to the east represent a core walking and cycling route which follows the line of the canal. Under the mixed-use allocation, a range of uses are considered appropriate on this site, including housing, employment and retail. In addition, falling within the town centre boundary, Local Plan Policy LP17 identifies a range of appropriate uses within the town centre, including offices and high-quality educational facilities. As set out in the report, the campus would deliver a range of buildings, including offices and education facilities, that would be consistent with the allocation and local plan. There is therefore no objection to the principle of development, which would also be likely to contribute to the vibrancy of the town centre. The application is submitted in outline with all matters reserved. So all other detailed matters, how the site is accessed, how it would be laid out, what the buildings would look like and how tall they would be, as well as the landscaping of the site, are all reserved for future consideration. However, the applicant has provided a very broad master plan, which you can see here. The site would be subdivided into 7 key development plots. The new Health and Wellbeing faculty would stand as the landmark building on plot 1 on the corner here, with smaller buildings behind separated by public realm and circulation space. A multi-storey car park would be constructed to the rear of Crown House here. It is anticipated that it would provide approximately 240 spaces, and the traffic generation for the site has been calculated on that basis. This would equate to approximately 99 two-way trips in the morning and evening peak, which, as detailed in the report, could be accommodated on the network. It is also in a very sustainable location, with a direct visual and physical link to the railway station, and also within walking distance of the town centre and bus station. A detailed travel plan would be a condition of the development. The applicant would also contribute £23,000 to upgrade the bus stop on Leeds Road to provide a bus shelter and real-time information. The application indicates that the campus would extend to a floor space of about 75,000 square metres. Because all matters are reserved, there are currently no details of the height and appearance of the buildings, but the applicant has prepared a series of indicative massing models to indicate what 75,000 square metres of floor space might look like. The next 3 slides show you that from different perspectives. They indicate that buildings of around 8 stories would likely be the highest on site, which would be lower than the 11-storey Crown House. Just take you through these 3. Materials are to be determined. The application states that they respond to the context, albeit that a more contemporary palette might be utilised on the landmark building at the frontage here, Block 1. Given the significance of this site within the town centre, it is proposed to impose the preparation of the first phase of reserve matters for the landmark building. It would be a very detailed condition that sets out all the details that would need to be considered within the master plan. These key points are set out at paragraph 10.26 of the report. The condition would require a consideration of various matters, including layout, permeability and definition of the public realm, as well as physical and visual connections to the wider area. A further condition would require the development of a set of design codes to inform the future appearance of building in the public realm. It would be the intention to at least bring details of the master plan back to this committee, along with the reserve matters for the first phase of development. Turning to other issues, a technical appraisal of the application with regard to matters such as flood risk and drainage, biodiversity, heritage impacts, ground conditions, noise and air quality is fully detailed in the report before you. These matters are considered to have been sufficiently addressed subject to conditions and the heads of terms for a legal agreement set out in the report. It is therefore recommended that approval of the application be delegated to the head of planning in order to complete the list of conditions, including those set out in the report, and also to complete the sealing of the Section 106 agreement. That is the end of the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Kate. We've got one speaker, which is Ian Bath.
Good afternoon. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Lovely. Thank you, Chair, fellow committee members. My name is Ian Bath. I'm the university's planning advisor. I have got Tim Hosker, the University Director of Estates, available on a telephone link if members have any questions subsequent to my comments. we can dial him specifically to answer any questions. This application proposal is highly significant both for the university and Huddersfield, and will, as the Vice-Chancellor of the university, Bob Cryan, has stated, will assist us in our commitment to help end health inequality in our region and beyond. The Southgate site is to be developed as a national health innovation campus, including as a first phase building, a 10,000 square metre health and wellbeing academy. The campus will also include world-leading research facilities, specialist clinical teaching facilities, an award-winning podiatry clinic, the Thrive telehealth service, sports and physio clinics, parent and child clinics, mental health clinics, and public-facing space dedicated to social sciences. The campus will enable rapid expansion in fields such as nursing, midwifery, allied health and human sciences, and will facilitate partnerships and co-creation between the university and existing and new partners in both health and care. By way of background, the contractual arrangements to acquire the Southgate site require an outline planning permission to be in place prior to its conclusion. Whilst in outline form, the supporting details submitted gives a clear indication of how development of the site is likely to proceed, with subsequent reserve matters applications. Conditions ensuring control over these details, as well as the overall master planning of the site, are recommended and agreed. The university have run a design competition earlier this year for the first phase Health and Wellbeing Academy, and a reserved matters application for this is currently being worked up for formal submission in the next month or so. Huddersfield Architects, AHR, have been appointed to lead the design of this new building and to act as the university's master planners. At the same time, therefore, as progressing the first phase building, the master planning of the overall Southgate site will be advanced and developed so that subsequent phases of development can be brought forward and the site comprehensively developed over the course of the coming years. And as Kate mentioned in her presentation, that first phase and the master planning associated with it will come back to this committee. In summary, the construction contract for the first phase building will deliver a minimum 30% spend within the Leeds City region and a construction spend of circa £40 million. Works are scheduled to commence in May next year, subsequent to any reserve matters approval, with the completion of the first phase building in September 2024. The university is also currently in discussions with other parties in relation to subsequent phases of development. This application and your decision this afternoon represents the start of a very important journey to deliver health, research and innovation for Huddersfield over the next decade. I would therefore ask you to support the officer's recommendation, so enabling this journey to begin. Thank you.
Right, members. Councillor Pattison.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I really welcome this application. Excuse me. Whilst not unfortunately, but it's only an outline application at the moment, so we don't have the detail. But I am really pleased to see this development of the university and of this site. Just a couple of comments, really, I suppose, whilst we await the detail. The university has provided some wonderful buildings architecturally up till now, and I'm sure and trust that they will do so again. What I'm conscious of is that there's a gap between the existing university buildings and this proposed university building of not very good designed buildings. And I trust, though, that the university and its architects will not sort of will continue to maintain their high standard of design and not sort of pander to the buildings that they will be surrounded by. Slightly, well, not worried, but I also sort of just have, I hope the height of the buildings. I mean, I hear that they're only going to be 8 stories, or likely to be 8 stories, which is probably just about okay in terms of the buildings that surround it. But I wouldn't like to see it too high. I do feel that that end of the ring road, that part of town, it needs to be slightly more in keeping. So, and the pictures make it, or the images make it look as if it could be verging on being over tall. But we'll have to wait for the full planning permission for that. And just one other comment. I mean, if access to the Huddersfield Broad Canal, I mean, it's not shown on our pictures at all, but I do hope there is access so that the university can be joined along the canal in that way, and perhaps make, not just for the university, but for the whole town, more of a feature of that broad canal. I don't know, I mean, they're not particularly nice buildings along that the canal at the moment, but you know, perhaps with time that could be improved. But I'm very happy to see this here, recognise that it's just outline planning permission, and note all the conditions that are put on that at 10.6. And I will be happy to move it.
Thank you, Chair. Like my colleague, Councillor Patterson, I welcome this proposed building on this site. The site, which we all know been there for empty since we moved the sports centre to new Huddersfield Leisure Centre in more than 10 years now. I'm glad Huddersfield University come up to use this site. My main comments are, Chair, the appearance of this building, with particularly plot 1, which is right facing on the main road, on the south gate, facing to the beautiful old buildings, which are all stone built, yeah, right to see through up to Huddersfield railway station. Because we haven't got any architectural design yet, because it's still in the process. We can't say any much until we get the full design of this building. So I hope that design will be matching up our building and the surrounding area. We don't know the material as well. Yeah, you say material will be, he said somewhere it will be hard and robust material would be used. I don't know which is hard and robust material. So we will see it when the full application, detailed application comes the next time, yeah. I got some more comments about Mr. Chair. When this building will be built and used, I think there will be lot of people shuttling between two university sides. The university now, the one is there. I'm looking where, because the people won't be using any car going from one side to other side. I'm looking some good walkway between two buildings from there to the new building. So that walkway should be environmentally friendly. Yeah, I know there's a lot of pedestrian going through between the 7 blocks. Yeah, and those blocks should not be pedestrian. Those pedestrian should not be like a alleyway. That should be used as a walkway to promote our climate change issue and environment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Fairly brief. I support what's been said so far, particularly about the university and its the way in which it has built really quite striking buildings, which have done a terrific lot to enhance the appearance of the town centre. So I feel very confident that particularly having put this out for a design competition, that they will come up with something that is fitting. It is of course then up to us to decide whether it's fitting enough for the town centre, and I can't second guess that, obviously, but as far as establishing the principle of using this site for the purpose given, I give it my wholehearted support, and will certainly be voting for it. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Graves.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the principle of it. I do note that there's quite an extensive list of conditions on some pretty key areas as well. So there's a long way to go with this, but I'm comfortable that the university can deliver it based on their track record. Yeah, in some respects, it's lacking on detail and maybe a tad premature, but the master planning arrangements should address that, and we'll come to that in good time. So I'm in favour of supporting this.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, more than happy to support this in the future. Just want to voice one small pet peeve that I have about 21st century planning, that we still insist on multi-storey car parks above ground. I find it almost incomprehensible that we've still got to build these monstrosities at the side of good buildings when we could bury these car parks and we have another 12 to 15,000 square metres of building above it. So that's my only comment. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, sort of agree with all the comments that have been made, and knowing the university, I do think they come up with some quite innovative buildings, some quite modern, some sort of in keeping with the other, and I'm sure that whatever they do come up with will be quite actually probably nice and quite interesting. So yeah, it'd be nice to see the detail, but quite supportive.
Right, so initially when I read this I thought, God, there's a long way to go, and I was right, there is a long way to go, but as has been mentioned, the design of some of the buildings now that we've got at Huddersfield University I think are superb, especially the big one on the Ring Road. That really sets Huddersfield off. So, not too high, design, safety, walkways to be safe, that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to this to see what we get back next time. It has been moved by Councillor Pattison, it has been seconded by Councillor Pinnock. So we'll go to a vote. Andrea.
Councillor Greaves.
Accept.
Councillor Bellamy. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Sokol.
For.
Councillor Pattison. Councillor Hall.
For.
Carrie, thank you.
Right, next, page 35, and this is sports field with floodlighting, Hayes Road, Thongsbridge. Chris, I think it is.
Thank you, Chair. And good afternoon, members. I am Christopher Carroll. I am the Senior Planning Officer in the Majors team dealing with this planning application. This is a full planning application for the formation of an artificial grass pitch with associated features, including 8 15-metre high floodlights, fencing of up to 4.5 metres, pedestrian circulation and access route, vehicular maintenance and emergency access with Springwood Road, erection of store, grass mounds, retaining structures and landscaping works at the grass playing field associated with Holmfirth High School, Hayes Road, Thongsbridge, Holmfirth. As shown in this slide, the site's red line boundary is situated in the established settlement of Thongsbridge, sited between Springwood Road to the north, the bridges to the northwest, and the school buildings and Hayes Road to the southwest. Houses can be found along these roads. In addition, a co-op and a takeaway store can be found beyond the site's northern boundary. These images show how the site relates to Springwood Road. They show how the school's grass playing field is set on higher ground than the road, and how the school's buildings are in turn set on higher ground to the field and road. The images show that the field is denoted from the road by a boundary stone wall. It is open in places and partially enclosed by a mature tree belt. The top images show some of the nearest properties to the site at Springwood Road. The bottom left and right images show the relationship of some of the properties at the bridges, with the site set on higher ground to these properties above a railway cutting. All the surrounding properties are located 50 metres away from the proposed artificial grass pitch, and the bottom middle image shows the main vehicular access point would be utilised at Hayes Road. As shown in this slide, the proposal would consist of the replacement of an existing school playing field with an artificial grass pitch and associated features. It is understood that the current grass pitch is mainly used by school pupils, with the occasional use of the local community football teams. The purpose of this proposal is to provide a high-quality sports facility that can be used by school pupils and the local community and sports groups throughout the day and year. To ensure that the artificial grass pitch can successfully serve its local community, it has been designed in accordance with the Football Association guidelines for artificial grass pitches. Therefore, the design is typical for such facilities that can be found on school and sports grounds throughout the country. It is proposed that the users of the artificial grass pitch would have access to existing car parking areas within the school grounds near to the pitch, which consists of an area that could approximately accommodate 133 parking spaces. This is considered sufficient as it is predicted that the maximum participants on the site at any time will be 120. Highways Development Management have raised no objections subject to conditions including a car parking management plan to ensure that this car park is appropriately used. Members should note that the 21 car parking space to the north of the site does not form part of this planning application. It has recently been given approval under a separate planning application earlier this year. This proposal is not reliant on this car parking facility. As the site forms part of a school playing field, it is designated within the local plan as urban green space. As highlighted in paragraphs 10.1 to 10.10 of the committee report, officers consider that it can be demonstrated that a new artificial grass pitch is equivalent or better in quantity and quality terms to the pitch provision that would be lost. In addition, weight can be attributed to the current shortfall of high-quality artificial grass pitches within Kirklees Rural West, and this proposal would represent a significant investment in the provision of a high-quality sports facility for the district. As shown in this slide, the school can accommodate summer sports that cannot be accommodated on the artificial pitch, such as the athletics and rounders can be utilised by utilising the school's other playing field, known locally as Little Wembley, located at Stonybank Lane. Therefore, subject to the imposition of a planning condition securing a community use agreement, officers consider that the principle of development would accord with the local plan policies LP47, LP49, LP50 and LP61. Furthermore, Sports England have reviewed the application and considered it to satisfy their requirements, and then, as well as the National Planning Policy Framework. These images are taken from the supporting design and access statement and show the appearance of the proposed features, including fencing, barriers, floodlighting, artificial grass carpet. Officers consider that these features would aid in the successful use, management and security of the facility, and due to their design would not have an adverse impact on visual amenity in accordance with local plan policy LP24. Officers also acknowledged that the proposal would be seen in context from Springwood Road and at some elevated positions in the local landscape. However, the school buildings would screen the facility from the south due to them being on higher ground, and views of the pitch from the north would be restricted by the numerous woodland areas. This indicative image is representative of a worst-case scenario taken from the north at Thurston Land Bank Road between two intervening woodland areas. Officers consider that it demonstrates where the facility is visible, it would be seen in context with the school buildings and the settlement in the background. As such, officers do not consider that there would be any adverse impact on the understanding of the landscape character. Extensive negotiations have taken place between officers and the applicant with regard to the potential issues related to residential amenity. The proposed floodlighting is considered necessary to generate the local community use of the facility, particularly in the evening hours. The proposed lighting specification has been designed in accordance with the Football Association guidance and consists of 8 15-metre high lighting columns using 16 Philips Optivision LED floodlights to achieve an average of 200 lux. This slide shows how the proposal would utilise integral louvre technology that concentrates the light onto the sports pitch and significantly reduces the horizontal and vertical light spillage during the use of the pitch. As a result, supporting information explains how the bridges would experience no light spill, whilst the trees and properties at Springwood Road would experience between 0.5 and 1.31 lux of illuminance, which is below the 5 lux threshold as recommended within the Institute of Lighting professional guidance. Furthermore, 1 lux is the minimum lighting level which would normally be expected on a minor road or estate road. As such, officers do not consider there to be any issues to the proposed lighting scheme subject to the necessary planning conditions. With regards to noise, this image is taken from the noise impact assessment and shows the predicted average outdoor noise levels of the pitch over an hour period. It shows how no neighbouring properties would fall within the blue and yellow areas, which is within the 50 decibel and 55 decibel range, which is considered by the World Health Organization to be where moderate to serious annoyance occurs. Environmental health officers have initially raised concerns regarding the noise from raised voices and ball strike sounds on fencing. However, it is considered that these issues can be satisfactorily resolved with the imposition of planning conditions, securing a noise management plan, pitch perimeter fencing fixtures, and an hours of use condition, as outlined in paragraphs 10.23 and 10.37 of the committee report. Members should note that after extensive discussions with the concerned parties, the school have accepted a reduction in the proposed hours of use, as detailed within paragraphs 10.29 and 10.30 of the committee report. Consultation of the hours of use has also taken place with members of the community, with 2 letters of objection still received. Officers overall consider that, subject to the necessary planning conditions, officers believe that the proposal will not have an adverse impact on residential amenity. With regards to flooding and drainage, the site is considered to be within a low flood risk area. Officers consider that flooding in the immediate vicinity of the site is proven to be at a different location and from different sources, and the lead local flood authority have investigated all matters of flooding raised by members of the public. The slide shows that the field and its 1950s drainage system will be replaced by an artificial grass pitch of porous construction with attenuation proposed within the pitch subbase and the soakaway chamber to the northwest of the pitch. As such, this proposal would accord with the drainage hierarchy and would result in an improvement in the site's drainage with due consideration of the climate change events. No objections have been received by the lead local flood authority, subject to conditions for a finalised soakaway design and securing a management and maintenance regime of the proposed soakaway. In conclusion, as no objections have been received from any statutory consultees or from any other council officers, subject to the necessary planning conditions, this planning application is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chris. Right, first speaker we've got is Karen Franklin.
Good afternoon. I'm a sports enthusiast who is very much in favour of improved sporting facilities for the community, but I most strongly object to this proposal today, as I believe there are matters that need to be sorted out before planning can go ahead. In particular, flooding, environmental health issues, traffic, hours of use and public access. Regarding flooding, Springwood Road is known to flood on a regular basis. This year, raw sewage has flooded out of the drainage into neighbourhood gardens as a result of heavy rainfall. The current drainage systems are clearly inadequate. We must ensure that everything is in place to protect properties from flooding prior to approving a planning application, and this is currently not the case. Environmental health. The Environmental Health Department have stated that this proposal represents a significant loss of amenity to local residents. Noise is in excess of World Health Organization standards. 200 lux of light is 3 times the British standard that's required. Management plans for light and sound have been proposed. Well, let's get these in place before considering accepting the plan. Traffic. There are known problems on Springwood Road, Hayes Road and Myrey Lane. There was a death on Springwood Road a few years ago, and still no improvements for vehicular or pedestrians have been put in place. Access to the car park off Hayes Road is extremely difficult. Again, let us tie this proposal into plans to improve traffic systems before giving it the go-ahead. Hours of use. A letter proposing the change in hours of use was incorrectly dated and sent to the local residents, so they were told that there was no opportunity for them to respond. The significant loss of amenity to them must be curtailed to a more reasonable hour than 9 p.m. every day. I propose 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on weekdays and 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays. Public access. These fields have been in use by the public to cross and recross for well in excess of the 20-year period. They are a right-of-way. The views from this location cover most of a 3-quarter panorama of the Home Valley. The fields are used by the school and the community for a wide range of sporting activities, team games, football, rugby, athletics, cycling, and as a playground. The proposal is to replace this with a fenced-in, football-only facility. Surely, people here can see today that this is a restriction in use for the local community. So I urge you all, at the very least, to defer your decision until this planning application represents a fair and improved facility for all. Thank you very much.
Next is Ryan Blizzard. Afternoon, Ryan.
Good afternoon.
Right, you've got 3 minutes starting from now.
No problem. Thanks for the invite. Thornborough High School is a school with a rich sporting heritage. However, over time, its facilities have not met the needs of its students and ever-changing developments in the requirements of sports facilities, therefore having an impact on the sporting experiences and opportunities available to its students in comparison to other students in comparable schools within the country. The school is keen to address this and improve facilities both for its students but also the local community, and is financially now in a position to do so. The current outdoor facility, even though a vast space, is subject to adverse weather conditions, resulting in the pitches not being able to be used for large periods during the winter months. The new facility would eradicate this problem, meaning students are able to get a rich sporting experience all year round. At times when childhood obesity is on the rise from 17.5% to 21% in children over 11 years since 2007, according to the UK Paralympic data, we feel this new facility will have some way to have a positive effect on the health of its students and members of the local community. In addition, our local community clubs currently have a limited requirement for high quality space. One of our local clubs uses 12 different sites across Huddersfield. One of the training facilities being 50-minute drive there and 50-minute drive back to access a 1-hour football session. This therefore poses challenges to parents and carers both in terms of time and cost for parents to try and support their child in sport. In addition, this also potentially prevents our more disadvantaged children accessing community sport due to accessibility of facilities, due to the elevated cost and the need for large amounts of travel. Again, with childhood obesity levels higher from those children in disadvantaged backgrounds, this is a concern. The new facility will allow those children and adults from our more disadvantaged backgrounds within the Home Valley to have access to high quality facilities and sport easier, and therefore prevent a potential social divide within our community clubs. Furthermore, we have seen a rise in childhood adult mental health concerns over the last 4 years. According to the Centre for Mental Health in the UK, now 1 in 6 children are suffering from mental health issues. The school is very keen to address this, and one way is to provide more recreational space for its students to play and be children. Our current field does not allow this due to the weather mentioned earlier. The new facility will allow the school to open this space at social times, to have organised internal competitions as well as non-competitive play. This is shown to improve both physical and mental well-being. Finally, the school is aware that the facility will pose some concerns from our local residents and neighbours. However, the school is committed to work, as always with our residents, to ensure that the school meets the needs of its students while also supporting its local community. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Next, Councillor Firth.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Right, okay, I'll start then. Way back in March, I wrote to Kirklees after hearing about this plan for the 3G field on the school playing field, and I did write to find out quite a number of things. One was parking problems, the other was light pollution, noise, times of usage, and the main thing was drainage. We've had a problem with the school, or the fields around the school, now for a number of years on drainage. And when it rains really heavy, most of those houses down Springwood Road, they get the cellars full of water. They never used to do, but somebody had been obviously digging around at the school or on the playing fields. And we had suspected, and still do suspect, there's a broken drain somewhere in the middle of that area, which does need looking at. Yorkshire Water have known about this for probably, if I said 10 years, I wouldn't be exaggerating. And of course, on the 4th of July this year, there was so much water came down that the combined sewer overflowed, and of course there was raw sewage down the road in Springwood Road. Now, when you take all these things into consideration, and of course the lights, 15 metres, light pollution, that the school is unfortunate. It sits right in the middle of residential areas. And the people have got to know very little about what's going on. The last gentleman said they want to work with the people around. Well, fine. That's what I want to do. I want them to work with the people around them, the residents that live around them. I don't just want them to just say, well, we're going to do this, and because we know exactly, I know what happens. They go away, they get the permission, and as far as they will be concerned, the residents can please themselves. And as far as putting a soakaway in on that land, they want to put a proper drainage system in, because with the inclement weather that we get nowadays, especially in the high areas like Scholes and Wooldale and places like that, water, unfortunately, overflows, and I keep telling people it does run downhill and it can cause a problem. And the worst thing you can do nowadays with all this excessive water that we get is soakaways. It needs a proper drainage system. We need to know. It's all right them standing up there and saying we've got enough car parking space. There's enough car parking space on a Saturday and Sunday morning when they played what they call the little Wembleys. People down Hayes Road have to put up with drive ends being blocked up. It's not on. People shouldn't have to live like that. They've been there longer than the school, and they need to be taken into consideration. The environmental health don't look very kindly on it. I don't know how far they've gone with it for health issues. So please, before you make any decisions, as far as I'm concerned, it needs looking into before any decisions are made, with the thoughts of the people that have to live there. It's all very well these people going playing football there. When they've finished, they can all go home. We're still left with the people who have to live down Hayes Road, Springwood Road, Mary Lane, Homefirth Road. They've all got to live there. So please, will you take it into consideration? And if need be, okay?
Thanks, Donald.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. Next, we've got a statement from Councillor Patrick, which I think Andrea's reading out.
Yeah, I'll read that out, Chair, thank you. Homefirth High School has been trying for some considerable time to bring this facility to fruition. I support it in principle, but there remain some concerns that have not been addressed properly that I know many of the residents, particularly on Springwood Road, are worried about. Given that it's taken so long, I would have hoped the outstanding matters would have been addressed, but even in the officer's update, it is evident that the proposal is to work up conditions following approval. Environmental Health Services have expressed concern about the amenity of residential properties in terms of noise, hours of use and impact from the high lux lighting. The lead local flood authority has expressed concern over the treatment of surface water drainage. Both are now looking for post-approval conditions. I think this is one of those applications where a committee should look to defer the decision so the planning authority can get this right. There's always been a problem with surface water drainage from this land seeping into the properties on Springwood Road. Kirklees Council has not been able to stop the properties flooding in the last 20 years. Springwood Road also floods below number 27. Water cascades down some steps onto the road, so we know this is a problem. There is also a problem with foul water. In the update, the LLFA is accepting a soakaway. The water does not soak away now, so that this cannot possibly work and it needs looking at again. There is also a problem with cars parking on Springwood Road. There should be a condition stipulating all vehicles associated with the use of the pitch should use the school car park. However, Springwood Road is a highway with no parking restrictions. On Saturdays and Sundays, it gets so bad with footballers parking that the road is blocked and the police have to be called out. There is no self-policing by the drivers, the clubs or the FA, and I suspect this will become a problem 7 days a week. Therefore, I would ask that a contribution be made to pay for parking restrictions on Springwood Road to enable traffic to flow and maintain road user safety. Noise nuisance from players and light nuisance from the 200 lux lights could be controlled better, and the impact on residents will be less if the days and hours of use were restricted. To me, it is totally unreasonable to expect residents to suffer loss of amenity 7 days a week up to 9 o'clock at night. By reducing the days and hours of use, you automatically reduce noise nuisance and light nuisance and improve residential amenity. Even though the days and hours of use have been changed from the original proposal, I hope committee members will agree with me that they need to be reduced further. You could either sort that out today or defer the decision for further options to be brought forward. Sheffield FA want longer hours, and I would suggest that this is rather selfish of them. For the winter months, when the lights will be on longer than they propose, 7 days a week, finishing up to 9 p.m, I would bring this down to finishing no later than 5 p.m, Monday to Saturday, with no games on a Sunday. From April to September, when the nights are lighter, they propose finishing 8 p.m. I will bring this down to 6 p.m, with 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. on a Saturday and no games on a Sunday, no games on bank holidays. Let's get this right and not rush it through. Thank you.
Thank you. Members? Donna?
Thank you, Chair. I know this site and this school really well, to be honest. My son went there. Traffic around the school has never been good. It is absolutely horrendous, and I must admit, getting into that car park off Hayes Road it's awful. And there has been a lot of accidents there. In fact, there's a lot of near misses. So I would like to see some sort of traffic management plan, to be honest. I've also, it'd be nice to have some clarity on what community use is and what agreements have been made, because I mean it's all very vague, isn't it? They're saying they'll let the community use it, but it doesn't say what, when, sort of thing. So I tend to think that there isn't enough detail in what we've got here, and I'd be at the moment tempted to actually defer this for more detail to come back. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I know this school and the surrounding roads and the housing everywhere, because years back I used to run school buses into the ground and into the car park of the school, Homepath School. I know that that time there used to be some parking problem on Springboard Road and the Hayes Road, but that was only because of the parents dropping off their children in the morning, peak hour, and picking up children in the afternoon. But during other time, there wasn't much problem on parking up there. This proposed pitch grass patch to be used, it will be used by the local community, not people coming from far away. So the people might be walking to the ground, when they come there. So I don't see there will be much parking on there and that time when the community use that. But one thing, Chair, I'm not clear. It says the timing is from 9 to 8, 20 hours, Is that community will be only after school hours? It doesn't say on here. Between 9 and school over 4 o'clock, it will be only for use of school. It's not clear. I think we need to make it clear that. So I'm glad on the summertime when people are out, the times are down, and Sunday is closed as bad. Time is only 9 till 20 hours, and Saturday is only 9 till 2 o'clock. I'm quite happy with that. I think it will be used by the local community. I think they need it, We can't turn it down. I don't think we can get any more information on the information all year, only information which I ask that, about children in the ground will be used mainly school children between school hours. I think I've seen some bears, Home Valley Parish Council support the scheme as well, So it's good, so I'm happy to move this one, to officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. So I find it a bit, I think, personally, I'd like to know more about community use, either it is community or it isn't. And it can't be community use when it's in school hours. That's a total waste of time. I can't see somebody like Morley Rugby Club being told, Joel, you can use your floodlights, but you can only use them between 9 o'clock at morning and 5 o'clock at tea time. What's happening when seniors are going to go out training at night time? So we do need, I think that's a good point, Donna, what you've brought up. How many community groups and teams are going to use it? Anyway, Andrew.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, there seem to be a lot of holes in this, and I'm not totally clear what is being proposed. It's not clear whether there is any community use at the moment, and I think that needs to be clarified. And many of the points that Councillor Bellamy made, I totally support. And I was going to say, if she was wanting to propose deferral, I would second it. But simply because the details that are given here seem very conflicting. We've heard two representations that suggest no use in the evening. Yet how on earth do you do community use if you can't use it in the evening? It doesn't seem well. That's a complete conflict. So we need that sorted out. There are issues about light spillage and things like that which we need to have nailed down. And I must admit that the images that we've been given do give me some comfort that can be controlled, at least to the level that it doesn't cause a nuisance. And similarly, the noise issue as well. But like you, Chair, I think this issue about community use is just not clear. So, as I say, if Councillor Bellamy has proposed, I'll second it. If not, I'll propose it, deferring it. Yeah.
Any more? Mark?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd support a deferment at this moment in time, and one of the main reasons is nearly every comment that's been made is reference to the drainage and the problems in that local area. And if we went ahead and passed something that just added to the ongoing problems that these residents have got, then more fool us, because if we defer it now, ask for more granularity on the drainage, and help everybody, including ourselves, to understand what the implications are, then I think it would be better for everybody. The other issues I've got is with the times. You know, I've got two boys that have grown up in local football clubs and things like that, and asking them to try to get to a football club at 4 o'clock or 4:30, 5 o'clock and have different teams playing in different hours. If we restrict the hours, then it becomes a problem for the pitch itself being used and utilised. So we have to then look at the A, parking, B, the hours, C, the lighting, to make sure that everybody has an advantage out of this, rather than a lot of people, residents in particular, being disadvantaged just for the sake of an all-weather pitch. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm a little bit up and down about this one. In terms of the current use, well, the sports centre operates outside of school hours and has done for decades. As for people coming from nearby to use it, people come from all over. I guess why Sheffield FA has shoved its two-penny in indicates that it's got quite a large draw. In terms of all-weather pitch provision, there is a shortage for the Home Valley. You have to go up to Home Valley High School, which is in the other valley. So for kids from Home Firth, you're probably talking something like a 10-mile round trip. These facilities do tend to be located at high schools. So your choices really would be Honley, but Honley subject to a PFI arrangement and restrictions around the use of the playing fields, and Home Firth. So there's limited scope as to where they can go. In terms of current use, the issue I would have said is more to do with Little Wembley, which is the playing area away from the school playing fields. So one concern I've got is if we're decanting or relocating activity from the school onto Little Wembley, that will have a big impact upon those residents because there's very few service provisions down at Little Wembley. If I remember correctly, it's just a little narrow track, so they don't have parking within that provision. Within the school grounds, out of hours, there's quite a bit of parking. So some of this is, it breaks down to in-school use, out-of-school use, and it's really down to the applicant to explain that, not to me to guess at it as to how it used to operate when I went 8 years ago. So I've got concerns about if there's going to be a relocation of out-of-hours activities down to Little Wembley or an intensification of current. So if by putting this facility in the school playing grounds, it means more team games, certainly more adult or child out of school team games get pushed onto Little Wembley, that will have a big knock-on impact. And that's not really been covered in these proposals. If it's just a case of some school use being pushed down to Little Wembley, I think they've said like moving around this pitch down there, I can't see that having a big impact. In terms of hours of use, well, the whole point of having a floodlit facility is so that it can push on into the evenings. 9 o'clock, 8, 9 seems sensible. And then there's the other comments regarding the flooding issues. And in terms of the officer's response to it, there doesn't seem to be much in there in terms of how the soakaway is going to be, what the conditions are around flooding and drainage to make sure. Normally on a housing development, for example, the drainage team would be saying that the incorporation of flood and drainage design features would improve matters. Well, the comment here is just to kick it back to the Environment Agency and Yorkshire Water. So I think in terms of where we're at with this is a facility that I think would be welcomed in the valley and it's overdue. But in terms of answering the questions, I don't think it's there. So I'm in favour of supporting deferral, but for me that deferral would cover what activities are going to be decanted or intensified down at Little Wembley, what flood risk arrangements are going to be made, and indeed in terms of out-of-hours use, it would be helpful for the applicants to explain in detail to the committee exactly how that functions, including what the higher charges are going to be.
Thank you, Chair. I just very quickly say that I think the issues of drainage and lighting and noise have been addressed in the report or in the update report. I think if I'm reading it correctly, I mean, in terms of drainage, I mean, the report is saying it will not add to any existing problems. And in fact might make it better because there will be this soakaway, which there isn't at the moment, but it will not be going into the drainage system. So the existing flooding that there is on Springwood Road will not be exacerbated there. In fact, it might be made better. The lighting, we've seen good examples of how that won't affect nearby residents. And similarly, Environmental Health are now saying that a noise management plan should be in place. I do know as well that the Colne Valley, most of Huddersfield when you look at it, most of Kirklees when you look at it, is hilly. There are not an awful lot of place to put football pitches. And these facilities are desperately needed by the community. It's not professional football clubs who are going to come along and play here with all their supporters or anything else. It'll be just the players themselves and or a few mums and dads and hopefully a referee occasionally. But these, I don't think, I think as has been said, by moving the big matches to this particular pitch, the school car parking facilities will better be able to cope with those in the evening. I mean, I do agree that perhaps more information could have been given on existing and potential community use. If people wish to defer it for that information, then I'm prepared to accept that. But otherwise, I'm quite happy to support the application as it stands.
Thanks, Bill. Chris, you want to come back?
Thank you, Chair. Just for points of clarification, Sport England, when usually commenting on these applications, review it against their own planning policy, and if they are happy with it, they are the ones that suggest a community use agreement planning condition, and that condition entails how the facility would be managed by and what community clubs would use it and when they would use it, and the pricing, as alluded to by some of the members. It's, as you can appreciate, it's a bit of a chicken and egg scenario because there's no facility at the moment approved by members or the local planning authority. So they are like in the dark in terms of they don't know who will be using it until they know the hours of use it can operate or what levels of usage they can get on this particular site. But I can assure members that they have been in touch with many local community clubs who are very willing to use it, and the design and access statement does provide quite a comprehensive review of the clubs that would use it and are likely to use it, and many of the representatives do kind of support the proposal. In terms of the proposed hours of use, I've got to say that has very much been led by Environmental Health, Sports England and the Council in terms of what we believe is appropriate for, and them hours have been put forward by ourselves rather than the school putting forward them hours. The school originally proposed great hours of use up to 10 o'clock in the evening. The school in their original proposal said from 5 o'clock till 10 o'clock on an evening would be used by community clubs, and we can tie that down into a condition if members accept that the community clubs would use this facility from 5 o'clock till 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the evening. We can make that clarification. Like I said, that is the original point on paragraph 10.30 is to just explain that the hours of use of the facility would take place within that time. We can add further clarification when the hours of community can take place within a condition. With regards to drainage and flooding, the flooding is taking place to the rear of the properties at Springwood Road and on Springwood Road itself. It is outside the red line boundary. I understand that there is some drainage facilities on the site, including a redundant soakaway feature that was found on when doing site investigations, and soakaways are known to be effective in that local area and do work. This facility, in my opinion, would mean betterment, as it would replace the old 1950s drainage infrastructure with a new soakaway, and council and officers could attach a condition to ensure that this is appropriately managed and maintained for the longevity of the proposal. In terms of traffic management, the site has approximately 133 car parking spaces they're proposing nearby. The school also has a separate facility of 170 spaces further south, which is within the blue line boundary. The school have said that this could be also, if councillors consider, to be open to the community use as well. With regards to playing pitches at Little Wembley, it is proposed that just the summer pitches would be placed on that Little Wembley. At the moment, there's an athletics track and a rounders pitch on the Holmfirth High School playing fields, and these would be just relocated to Little Wembley. To my knowledge, it wouldn't mean an increase in use of Little Wembley. In fact, as I read it, there'd be use of the actual playing field for more footballers and local football teams. So I think yeah, if I hope I've just made them points clear for members to consider. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson.
Having heard those additional comments from the officer, I mean, I would be happy to propose that we accept this application with those additional conditions that he suggested, making mention of community use from 5 till 9, the use of the soakaway should be maintained in the future. I'm not sure if there was another one, but so I would move it with those additional conditions.
David.
Thank you, Chair. Not wanting to reiterate anything Chris has covered there, but there has been a significant level of negotiation and discussion about the hours of operation. The hours that you see in 10.30 in the main report, it explains that obviously the applicants proposed significantly greater hours, and the hours in there between 9 AM and 8 PM in the week, and it explains there are 2 different times of the year for those hours. That has been agreed by Environmental Protection and Sport England, and Sport England are a key player in the sports provision in educational facilities and community facilities. If those hours to be reduced further, it is unlikely that Sport England would be able to support the proposal. We do have officers available if members of the committee, Chair, if you do wish them to come in to clarify any matters in terms of the LLFA. We do have an officer. I'd like Chris Dowes to come in as well, just to discuss about traffic and highways, because there were some comments from members on that. In terms of publicity, Chair, there's been significant levels of publicity and engagement with the local community through the application. It has been a long time. The case officer has undertaken that with site notices, with letters. The most recent was notifying local residents of the proposed changes to the hours of use that are there in 10.30. That's all for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Yeah, I'll just try to clarify the issues around parking for members. As it currently stands, the sports grounds within the school itself are very rarely used outside of school, the school academic day. The parking which does occur on Springwood Road, which I understand it's mainly weekends, is associated with the sports fields that are at Little Wembley, which obviously is not this particular application. The provision of this 3G pitch will actually, some of the teams that currently play on that will actually play on the new 3G pitch. Providing this 3G pitch will mean that the car parking, the on-site parking within the school is available. So people using that facility will park within the school grounds and not on the public highway. There is fact that some of the teams that currently use the Little Wembley facilities will transfer to the 3G, will mean that the parking that currently occurs on Springwood Road will again transfer into the parking within the site itself, which currently isn't available, but it will be available as part of this proposal. The intention also is that obviously at week, Saturdays and Sundays and over the weekend, this parking will be available to use. So teams that actually still do use the Little Wembley facilities will, if they want, be able to park within the school grounds and walk across. There's no, that'll be the recommendation, but that's obviously outside the aspects of this particular application. Some people still might not want to walk across, but the parking within the school will be available for people using that facility to park and walk across to the Little Wembley facilities. But I think the school has stressed to us that A lot of the teams that currently play at Little Wembley, it's anticipated that they will move to this 3G facility, which can be used like on an evening because it's, and throughout the year because of weather conditions. It won't be affected by mud or flooding, and obviously with floodlights it will be able to be used in the evenings. Obviously the proposal uses existing access arrangements, and the intention is for the car parking management plan, which will with marshals to sort of ensure the parking is used efficiently within the school site. I hope that clarifies the parking arrangements.
We've got one proposal for deferral and one for accepting officer's recommendation. The first one that were completed, i.e. moved and seconded for deferral. Now, whether officers have changed your minds and you're not too bad with going along with officers' recommendation, we'll find out. So we'll go to a vote on deferral if that's okay. Yeah. And the reasons being community use, the times, charges, drainage, parking, and to make sure that there's a proper agreement with Sports England and the school to make sure that it is used properly, it is used within certain times. I can't think of what else for deferment. Charles?
Yeah, if I may, my concerns around drainage are, I think it should be something more sophisticated than just a soak away. I think officers and the applicant will need some time to work out what that might well be. Hence why I'll be back in deferral when we come to the...
So, yeah. Right, Martin, you want to come in?
Yes, hi. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I've been listening to the arguments for the drainage on the site. As the LLFA, we have obviously looked at this from the idea that nothing that's done new should make anything worse. And with the proposal to use a deep soakaway for the new pitch, that, in our opinion, will not increase any flood risk to the surrounding area. In fact, if anything, it will actually act as a reduction of the flows that are currently being experienced. With regard to whether the soakaway is a good system, it is the preferred system in the national planning framework. That should be the first consideration for any soakage, any discharge of surface water should be to soakage, in preference to going into sewers or to water courses. So it is, in fact, the best solution from the point of view of the national planning framework agreement.
Right, thanks, Martin. Right, those are grounds for deferral. We all right with those, David? To move forward for deferral?
That's what committee wish it to be, but we've got drainage, parking, community use,
yep,
the preferred system of drainage, and the one, I think that was all, Chair.
I think charges were mentioned as well, somewhere along the line.
Electric charges for vehicles?
No, how much to hire.
Right.
Right, we'll move to a vote. Andrea?
Okay, thanks, Chair. So the vote is on deferral. Councillor Greaves?
For deferral.
Councillor Bellamy?
For.
Councillor Thompson?
For.
Councillor Pinnock?
For.
Councillor Sokol?
Against.
Councillor Patterson?
Against.
Councillor Hall.
Against.
Okay, so that's 4-3 deferred. Thanks, Chair.
Page 71. This is Grangemore, Huddersfield. Erection of detached shed stroke store. Victor, or it could be Kate, or it could be Chris.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. It's Victor Grayson, Development Management Master Planner in the Majors and Minerals team. This is item 10 on today's agenda. This is an application for full planning permission for the erection of a detached shed stroke store. This is a relatively old application that has been kept alive for longer than usual in light of the personal circumstances of the applicant and the death of the applicant's agent during the life of the application. However, almost 4 years on from the application submission and with no acceptable scheme currently before the council, it is considered appropriate to now determine the application. The application site shown here is on Wakefield Road, the A642, on the western edge of Grangemore, and it is within the Greenbelt. The site's two main buildings are a stone-built farmhouse and a large detached shed. TPO protected trees exist at the front of the site. There is a record of a culverted watercourse beneath part of the site. A public footpath runs along the site's western edge, and land opposite forms part of the wildlife habitat network. This is an aerial view of the site taken in 2018. And in these street photos, in these internet images of the site taken from Wakefield Road, we see the site's existing buildings and the TPO protected trees. As to what's proposed, under consideration today is the large L-shaped building shown on the right of this slide. This would have a footprint of 1,106 square metres, with a 73-metre long wing running along the site's eastern boundary and a shorter 35-metre long wing facing the road. Its ridge height would be 6.5 metres above ground level, and its eaves height would be approximately 4.75 metres above the ground. The walls of the proposed building would be concrete panels and Yorkshire boarding, with natural stone proposed to parts of the east and west elevations. Concrete or corrugated sheets are proposed for the roof. Internally, the building would be divided into a cow shed, which would be the largest component, a hay store and a tractor store, with a combined heat and power facility, wood store and a further store taking up the rest of the space. Now, of note, the applicant did attempt to amend the proposals during the life of the application in response to officer concerns. 6 iterations of the proposals were submitted. However, as the amendments were not accompanied by adequate drainage or other supporting information, they were not put to public consultation. And as only the applicant's original proposals were put to public consultation, it is recommended that the council's decision be based on that original scheme, which is the L-shaped 1,106 square metre building, which I'll scroll back to. Paragraph 149 of the MPPF states that the construction of new buildings should be regarded as inappropriate in the Greenbelt. However, it allows for some exceptions, including buildings for agriculture. It is therefore appropriate for the council to assess whether the proposal is indeed for agriculture. Related to this, officers and the council's external consultant have considered the scale and nature of the applicant's existing and proposed agricultural operation. Notwithstanding the fact that the submitted floor plan and other application documents refer to non-agricultural activity, the applicant has not demonstrated that a development of the scale is commensurate with the existing or proposed agricultural activity at this site. As it has not been convincingly demonstrated that the proposed development is or could be entirely for agriculture, it does not meet the test of paragraph 149 of the MPPF, and it must be regarded as inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. In this scenario, the MPPF directs the local planning authority to refuse planning permission and a reason for refusal is recommended in the committee report accordingly. Of note, the applicant may yet be able to demonstrate that a large-scale agricultural development is justified at this site. However, that justification has not been provided under this current application. Following refusal, if committee does refuse this application, the applicant would have the option of resubmitting and making a further case for approval, which addresses all the concerns. Other reasons for refusal are also recommended. Regarding drainage, a relatively recent submission from the applicant did not address concerns in relation to the drainage hierarchy and the site's existing culverted watercourse. Regarding impacts on TPO protected trees, although amendments submitted by the applicant may have addressed some of the concerns, as previously mentioned, it is recommended that the council's decision be based on the applicant's original proposal, which was considered harmful to the root protection areas and crown spreads of the adjacent trees along Wakefield Road. Regarding biodiversity, although the requirement to demonstrate a net gain was introduced after the application was submitted, the application nonetheless needs to demonstrate compliance with the local plan policy, and with no ecological information submitted in support of the application, a fourth reason for refusal is recommended. Other aspects of the proposed development relating to highway safety, parking, neighbour amenity and environmental health matters are considered acceptable or could have been addressed via submissions at condition stage had approval of permission been recommended. Representations were received from Councillor Armour and from the occupants of 2 neighbouring properties. As per the committee report, refusal of planning permission is recommended for the 4 previously mentioned reasons. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Victor. We've got no speakers on that, and to be honest, I can quite see why. So, members, it's over to you. Charles.
Yeah, thanks. Well, without providing a lot of justification, this is clearly inappropriate development in the green belt. I'm going to move refusal for all of the reasons set out by the officers in their recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, Andrew.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to do the same thing, but as Mr. Carroll mentioned, if we refuse it now, this will give the applicants the opportunity to sort out what they really want on this site. Well, at least I hope it does. Sincerely hope that they come back with something that may well meet with approval.
Right. It's been moved and it's been seconded to accept officer's recommendation for refusal. So we'll go to a vote. Andrea.
Thanks, Chair. So vote on refusal. Councillor Greaves.
To refuse.
4, yeah. Councillor Bellamy. 4. Councillor Thompson.
4.
Councillor.
4.
Councillor Pinnock. 4. Councillor Sokol.
4.
Councillor Patterson.
4.
Councillor Hall.
4.
That's refused, Chair. Thank you.
Right. Next item 11, when I can find it. Page 89, this is Close Hill Lane at Newsham. Tom, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. Could you please confirm that you can see the screen?
Right, Tom, it shows now. We can see it, we can hear you.
Good. This application seeks planning permission for 2 temporary single-storey modular classroom buildings to be sited adjacent to the Taylor Hill Centre, the Kirklees College site. The application has been brought to committee as it seeks to site 2 modular buildings, which is within urban green space designated land within the Kirklees local plan, which would be deemed a departure from the local plan. As set out in the committee report, no representations have been received for the development. The site is a educational campus specialising in animal and land-based studies with an associated car park. It is sited within woodlands on Taylor Hill with public right-of-way shown in purple. Residential areas are separated by the woodland and to the west, south and east of the campus. The shaded area is the extent of the urban green space designated land under LP 61. The proposal would not remove any trees nearby. It is proposed to site the temporary modular buildings to the southeast of the centre's main building to the right of the centre, which is to the right-hand side of the photograph displayed. The specific site is partly tarmac and partly lawned, currently holding some livestock and fence areas as shown in the photograph. To the left is the context of the 2 buildings in blue and its wider context. There is an public right-of-way adjacent, separated by dry stone walls, a green boundary fence, and the photographs show the side elevation of the centre where the proposed temporary sites, where the temporary buildings will be sited. This photograph shows the land to the rear of the proposed development. This was at the time of the site visit used for animal holdings. The temporary building subject to this application can be seen in the pictures on screen and are both single-storey modular buildings facing goosewing grey and of dark merlin grey flat roof design. The 2 classrooms are required to support the teaching of the theory of animal and land-based studies to post-16-year-old students. Members have a full and detailed report in front of them. However, the key consideration with this application is whether a small lot of urban green space, which in turn represents a departure from Local Plan Policy 61 of the local plan, can be justified. The proposed temporary modular buildings would be sited for 5 years, taking up a small section of land between the centre and the public right-of-way, which is currently used for animal care. The benefits would be to allow the Taylor Hill Centre to offer expanded educational facilities to its students whilst making best use of a dormant partly tarmac, partly grass area of low landscape or biodiversity value, which is presently not used or practical for sports and recreational activity next to a car park. Given these circumstances, it is considered that the departure from LP 61 is sufficiently justified. In addition, as set out in the published committee report, the proposal would not have a detrimental impact on highway safety, residential amenity, ecology, and is appropriately designed. Just to bring to members' attention, an objection has been received from the Coal Authority consultee response, and therefore we have amended the recommendation to delegate back to the head of planning for the applicant to address the objection from the Coal Authority. This is reflected in the update to the committee report. Nothing further to add, Chair.
Right, thanks, Tom. We've got no speakers. So, members, it's over to you. Mohan.
Well, I think this report is straightforward. It's for the education purpose. I don't think there will be we will have any reason to defer this item or to refuse this one. a recommendation to approve the application.
Councillor Thompson.
The only comment I could make, Chair, is I'd be curious to know why they felt it necessary to shoehorn the two temporary buildings in such close proximity to the footpath when there is quite a lot of green space very close to that it wasn't necessary to do that. So it's more of a curiosity than an objection, though. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Matt. Tom, do you want to come back on that one? David?
I'll answer that if I may, Chair. I mean, the applicants have obviously proposed these buildings in their best location, which is adjacent to an existing educational building. Being shoehorned in, officers have considered that there is enough space. We haven't had an objection from the PROW team of the authority, but I do understand, the members' concerns there. It is, I suppose, a difficult one. Obviously, being in urban green space, there is a need to try and screen the building, and there are existing trees close by, and it will be seen in the backdrop of the existing facility. So I understand what you're saying, Councillor, but I think, it is a reasonable proposition given the scale. It is relatively small scale, this development. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson.
I've no objection with this, but I'm just wondering what happens in 5 years' time. If these are temporary and they're only meant to be there for 5 years, is there a proposal that a permanent building will be made?
Thank you, Chair. I think Tom may be best placed to answer that. However, what I would emphasise is that conditions would require the temporary buildings to be removed after 5 years and the ground to be restored back to how the situation is at the moment and made good. If Tom can't speak, then that's maybe something we can address it via a condition and bring you that information. Thank you.
Tom, do you want to come back in? Yes, he is. Right, Tom.
Hello. Hi. As said before, we'll probably put a condition on for the siting of temporary modular buildings, and this will be subject to a planning application afterwards should they want to alter this permission further.
Thanks, Tom. Any more comments, questions? Well, it has been moved by Councillor Sokol. Charles Graves seconded, so we'll go to a vote. Andrea.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Greaves.
For acceptance.
Councillor Bellamy.
Abstain.
Councillor Thompson.
For.
Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Sokol.
For.
Councillor Patterson.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Okay, so that's delegated to approve, thanks.
Right. Final page 99. Final item. This is something that I'll be seeing in a little while on my way back home. Leeds Road, Mayfield. Nick.
Thank you, Chair. If you can't see my slides, just let me know. So yes, thank you very much, Chair. My name is Nicholas Hurst, Case Officer for the application. This application is a variation of condition to a previously approved development. The application seeks to vary the approved landscaping plan for the commercial development at Moor Park 25, also and previously known as Murfield 25. Specifically, it relates to the landscaping of Phase 2, which consists of units 2 to 4. Please note that this is an older aerial image, with development having commenced on site. The application is brought to committee, given the level of objection received and as the original application was considered by the Strategic Planning Committee. A request for a committee decision has also been made by local councillor Bolt. As noted, development has commenced with the units at varying stages of completion. This shows Unit 4 adjacent to Leeds Road. I draw your attention just to the sloped area here, which is where part of the proposed amendment is sought. And another image here, again, just showing the units in relation to Slipper Lane here and the banking there. And a final image showing the banking, Unit 4 and Slipper Lane, this time taken from Slipper Lane. This image shows the approved landscape plan, so the one that's previously been approved, but not the one put forward now. It includes a mixture of standard trees, whip trees, and other planting around the site boundary. Here and down. Standard and whip are arboricultural terms which define the form, age, and size of a tree. A whip is a young tree of approximately half to 1 meter in height. A standard tree is more developed, but still an immature tree, typically categorized by their trunk girth, but with a typical minimum height of 1.8 meters. The green dots on here are the location of standard trees, whereas whips will be planted at a density around them. This image shows the proposed landscaping plan. The red circles show the primary areas of change covering an area of 2,180 square meters. The approved plan included approximately 74 standard trees and approximately 654 whips in the red areas. The amended proposal seeks to remove the standard trees but plant an additional 1,200 instead, for a total of 1,800 whips within this area, those proposed and those previously approved. This is in addition to increased level of planting outside of the red areas. For context site-wide, the initial tree planting scheme proposed 153 standard size trees and 1,218 whips. The now proposed scheme includes 98 standard size trees with 3,053 whips. Along the frontage, the areas in blue are still proposed to host a mixture of standard and whip trees. This image shows a more zoomed in image of those areas to change. The applicant has cited safety issues with the planting and ongoing maintenance of larger standard trees due to the steepness of the bank in these locations. Initially, they proposed no trees in these locations, proposing shrubs and other low planting only, which was met with opposition from officers. The purpose of this planting was to offer screening to protect visual amenity and the residential amenity of neighbouring properties. Following negotiations, the application was amended to replace the standard trees with the significantly higher volume of whip trees. The standard trees would have had an ornamental appearance. Using whips results in a shift to the woodland type planting, while the use of younger trees at the planting stage does allow more trees to be planted. Within the area, the approved 76 standards would be replaced by approximately 1,200 whips for a total of 1,800. The use of whips will, over the longer term, result in a more natural, attractive and denser screen to the benefit of visual and residential amenity. Due to their lower height, it is accepted that there would be a reduced immediate visual impact through exchanging standards for whips. This would be somewhat offset by the notably higher density. Furthermore, the originally approved standards were still young trees, which would have taken many years to reach maturity and offer their maximum screening alongside sizable the sizable commercial buildings. Of the proposed species mix, which are predominantly the same for the standard and whip versions put forward, the largest size tree can take anywhere between 20 and 50 years to reach maturity. Interpreting growth speeds is difficult due to a variety of factors, such as ground composition and growing conditions. The proposed whips could take up to 10 years to reach a comparable height of these standards. However, as they are planted at a younger age, whips take to new environments better than standards and are expected to establish quicker and be more resilient, therefore typically reaching end mature height faster than trees planted as standards. 76 objections have been received in objection to the proposal, although many of those were received against the original proposal, which had no replacement planting. These public representations are considered and addressed within the officer report before members. In summary, weighing the initially lower screening value of the whips against the substantially higher level of trees proposed and the associated long-term benefits, the proposed variation is considered to be acceptable. Officers therefore recommend approval of the application with nothing further to add, Chair.
Thanks, Nick. We haven't got any speakers, but we've got a statement which Andrea's going to read out from Councillor Bolt.
Thanks, Chair. Once again, committee has asked for a variation on planning permission and conditions the developer has previously been happy to agree to. This application follows an earlier submission, later withdrawn, which claimed that the gradient on the slopes the developer themselves planned and built was unsafe for planting and maintenance of trees. This application does not appear on the section of the report for planning history, and so I hope the case officer will confirm this to committee. The last time committee was asked to decide on this site in June 2020, pressure was exerted on committee saying that there were businesses queuing up to get on site and a delay would mean loss of those businesses and jobs to Kirklees. With the exception of the initial or anchor tenant who was already there, we have heard nothing of any companies relocating to Kirklees since then. So one could treat this with scepticism and any similar comments or guarantees the developers may make today. In June 2020, committee considered deferral as the report was deficient in terms of not having the enforcement, compliance and conditions discharge element of the report. Sadly, that is the case again today, as item 4.3 simply says there is a singular separate matter ongoing, whereas there are a number of undischarged planning conditions and unresolved issues relating to a breach or failure to satisfactorily, in the view of many local people, comply with conditions. Those issues in part have given rise to the significant number of comments you have from the public on this matter. Why, when a developer has numerous discussions with Kirklees pre-planning and during the period to sign the decision notice, wasn't the issue of trees raised then? This site has been ongoing for over 2 decades, and only now, as the current developer is selling their interest to another, for whom we also now have an application for neon illuminated signs pending, are they considering changing the type and number of trees. I note the report refers to smaller standards. Again, it was never specified in the agreement the size of tree previously to be planted, and I know, as we now have a major international tree growing company in the borough and ward, that some standard trees are of such a size they need a crane or lift to position them and so offer greater immediate cover. The report does say in 3.4 that a standard has a minimum, and I stress minimum height of 1.8 metres. To provide immediate greater cover and benefit, a thoughtful developer could therefore provide and plant a standard tree of a greater height and girth, which is still classified as a standard, but obviously adds cost to plant needing machines. But as the developer has made their profit and is selling the site on, I'm sure that they wouldn't begrudge the community of Kirklees this small tax deductible expense. This is a problem with several planning conditions, as they are not specific enough, and so when one comes to delivery or compliance, there is too much wriggle room for developers. It is not possible to ascertain, in line with the Council's climate emergency aspiration, the impact or benefit of either option over a period of years, but clearly the visual effect and screening of a work when compared to a larger standard above 1.8 metres, as mentioned before, is, I hope, clear to see. The number of public responses and wider interest in planning issues is something I hope the committee will take note of. I would ask that, as the report is once again deficient in lacking the detail regarding history and compliance, that this time the committee do defer and demand officers to return to committee with a complete report. The last time you were promised a full report, if you agreed the June 2020 item, after a considerable delay, committee had an update, which it was stressed was for note only. Many comments and concerns were made about the site, including the chair instructing staff to get on site the same day, and you demanded a further update report the following meeting. After that update report, which again committee were told was for note only, you have not had a final and comprehensive report listing conditions on the discharge, which I know some, which would show some have not been met, despite in some cases they are supposed to have been done before occupation of either element of the site. When I've asked staff why the final report has not been presented to committee, as one would have expected in line with the promise of the June 2020 meeting, I was told, again, according to the approved minutes, this update was presented at the next meeting on the 27th of January 2021, and the report and next steps to continue site monitoring of conditions compliance was noted. There was no instruction for officers to bring further reports back to this committee. Committee would have had no need to instruct officers to bring a final report, as it had previously been promised by the head of service, and all that was being presented was an update for note on progress and for members to make comments on. Those committee members who rescinded their wish for a deferral in June 2020 may feel their good nature and trust has been abused, as according to the planning officer who wrote those words, you will never get the detailed report you were promised unless you now defer this matter due to the current omissions before you in the report. The alternative may be that you reject the request to change the previously approved condition and the developer plants what they previously promised, and committee may make a recommendation or caveat that the trees are indeed larger than 1.8 metres and not the minimum they can get away with. And that's time from Councillor Bolt. Thank you.
I'd just like to bring you back. It's just trees that we're talking about. We're not talking about this, that, other than loads of those and a load of them. So it's trees only. Mohan.
Thank you, Chair. We as a Kirklees Council, we are spending millions pounds, yeah, to reduce the carbon emission to zero target, yeah. To do that, we have spent £1 million to plant more and more trees. I think so far we have in Kirklees planted 32,000 trees. And we still doing that because we need to promote climate change. We approved this application not too long ago with condition. We listened to the local resident. The local resident wanted some trees to be planted to screen those commercial buildings there. The proposal is now, Mr. Chair, to change those conditions with the trees we call it whip trees. But to my knowledge, the whip trees, it would be just like a grown-up bushes, not a trees. I agree with that. The standard tree, it takes time to grow fully, but it's still a lot better than these proposed grown-up bushes. So I'm not happy with that, Mr. Chair. I don't know what members think about that, but I'm not in favor of this one. I move to, I think, to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I refer members to paragraph 1012, which I think is very revealing, actually. This is quoting our trees officers who say that it is quite possible that whips will grow better than standard trees in some circumstances. It does seem to me that there are other reasons whereby it's better to plant whips in this location than standard trees. The slope is an issue. I accept that, but it doesn't take a genius to discover that a lot of the places where there are steep slopes, there are trees. We've got some in Cleckheaton, for instance, naturally grown trees, admittedly, but on very steep slopes. And albeit that, I mean, it will take a while in this case for either whips or standard trees to be big enough to create a screen for this, what a lot of people locally describe as a horrible building, which in the context in which it's sitting, it probably is a horrible building. So it needs some screening. But I think, given the comments of our trees officers here, I would move acceptance of the officer's recommendation and hope that there are sufficient whips planted to provide, well, with suitable management at any rate, a suitable screen within, and it's probably going to take at least 5 years to create any kind of screen at all. We're not going to get something just like that. So I move the officer's recommendation.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that. Although I do note Councillor Bolt's extensive concerns around the commitment of the applicant to the screening and the ongoing maintenance of it, and I would sincerely hope that officers effectively monitor the implementation of these conditions.
I'll just bring Nick back and then I'll bring Carol in and then...
Yes, thank you, Chair, through you. Just to pick up on two of the main points Councillor Bolt was raising as reasons for a deferral. He mentioned about a withdrawn application not listed in the planning history. There wasn't a withdrawn application prior to this. It was the same application where they put in the application for no planting with a statement. That wasn't accepted by officers, so we undertook amendments and negotiations with them. Once that plan was submitted with the new whips, that was re-advertised, so the planning history is correct. The other matter he raises is in regards to the compliance of conditions. As this is a variation of condition planning legislation, does limit us to the consideration of matters directly relevant to the subject and the condition being changed here, in which the planning history, but also the planning compliance matters that Councillor Bolt's raised are not a material consideration. I will, if it's all right with you, Chair, through you, Chair, invite the legal officer in if she has anything further to add to that.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
Yes, thank you for bringing me in. Yes, it's very important that councillors are aware that this application has to be judged on material matters only, and whilst there may well be concerns about what the compliance history has been in relation to the larger site and the development here, that's really not what's before the committee today, and the committee are just being asked to consider whether or not the application in the terms as made is acceptable in planning terms, not to get into the broader history of the site. I hope that helps.
Carol.
Oh, excuse me. Thanks, Chair. If I'm reading this correctly, which I think I am, the tree officer is suggesting that ultimately there will be nearly 4,000 trees, or over 4,000 trees planted, even though, excuse me, I know some whips are likely to die. I mean, they... it's all right. It's gone now. I've sneezed. Yeah, so there will be over 4,000 trees eventually, albeit that some of those whips may die, because I do think whips don't have as successful a planting as standard trees would be. But there is little difference in height, but perhaps the mass of whips would look better initially, even, possibly. But on the assumption that at least, say, 3/4 of those trees would result in mature trees, that's still 3,000 trees as opposed to 1,400 trees. So I think Yeah, there's always the benefit of hindsight, isn't there? When you're coming to planting, landscaping, etc. When you've actually got the development there, it's easier to see what is best or is more likely to survive. So I'm happy to go along with the proposal or agree the recommendations of the officers.
Thank you. Bring Donna in and then Joe Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. To be honest, I think the legal officer has probably put things on. I've got concerns, to be honest, with things that have happened before, you know, regarding, you know, compliance and stuff. And are they really going to do this? But as the legal officer has already told me that this is about trees, so what can I say? So, to be honest, I'm really unsure that they'll do what they say they're going to do.
Joe Robinson.
Hello, I'm Joe Robertson, the tree officer who made the comments on this application. Just to check, am I coming through okay?
Can you hear you loud and clear?
Yep. Thank you. Looking at the planting that's changed in those areas, they're actually increasing the density of trees because they're putting in the smaller trees to start with. They're going from 2 metre spacings between trees down to a tree every metre. So while there won't be the initial height of the sort of 2 metre standards for that visual effect immediately, that denser packed planting will grow up to be a much better screen, a much denser screen that won't be able to be sort of penetrated. And there's quite a range of species going in. So there's some of the more lower shrubby, denser mixes in there to really provide that screen from the slip lane and the properties opposite. So in terms of while immediately when it goes in, the design will not look, there's some nice 2 metre trees there. Long term, it will be better for the environment and for the local area in terms of screen value and the biodiversity value and wildlife value that screen will produce as well. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thanks, Joe. Must admit, initially when I saw this, I thought, developer, check your prices, so I did. And it's not actually, I thought it was going to be a major difference, and it's not. Obvious there is one, but I don't think it's all to cry about as such. So it's been moved and seconded as this recommendation. So we'll move to a vote. Andrea? Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Greaves. Sorry, voting on a delegate to approve. Councillor Greaves.
Yeah, for acceptance.
Councillor Bellamy.
Abstain.
Councillor Thompson.
Abstain.
Councillor Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Sokol.
Is that, Chair, is the official recommendation? Yeah, I'm against.
Against.
Thank you.
Councillor Patterson.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Okay, so that's carried. 4, 1 and 2 abstentions. Thank you.
That, colleagues, is it for today?